Thanks to dedicating all of his earnings towards smart investments, Kinji managed to achieve the ultimate neat lifestyle, having to never work again. While in the middle of celebrating his easygoing future, he gets transported to another world, Emuria. That world is inhabited by all kinds of demi-humans. While in the past it was common for people to delve into the dungeons to seek treasures and battle monsters for power and glory, things changed once modernization took over. Now everyone uses the demonite found in dungeons as an energy source, with companies opening up to dig out the precious material. One such mining company is where Kinji is working now. This specific company does not care the slightest about their workers, forcing them to work inhumane hours only to increase profits. He is extremely frustrated with the fact that his luxurious lifestyle came to an abrupt end, now having to work day in and day out with no end in sight. Due to a stroke of luck, he ends up discovering something interesting. Seeing an opportunity, he recruits a fellow worker from his team, Wannabe, who gets frequently abused by others. Wannabe is wary of getting involved with Kinji, as Kinji is infamous for being in a large debt. Kinji explains to Wannabe how he got into the debt, not giving up on convincing him to join forces. Wannabe ends up getting swayed by Kinji's words, and the two of them declare they will be doing prospecting tours, which means they will delve deeper into the dangerous levels of the dungeon in order to find demonite of higher quality for their team. After they set out, Kinji reveals to Wannabe that what he found is a secret entrance into the lower levels of the dungeon. Making preparations ahead of time to make sure they will be safe, Kinji leads Wannabe to a place rich with demonite. After gathering a large amount of demonite, they are intercepted on their way out by a large dragon. Realizing that the dragon will likely kill both of them, Kinji uses his wits, offering to feed the dragon with tasty food every day if it protects them from other monsters in return. After introducing itself as Rim, the dragon accepts Kinji's proposal, transforming into a little girl so she could follow them around more easily. And so the profits of the mining team Kinji is assigned to Skyrocket. Unfortunately, any earnings he gets are all spent on Rim's food, as she turns out to be constantly hungry and willing to devour pretty much anything or anyone. During one of the prospecting tours, Kinji stumbles across some magical items that were left behind by adventurers who met their unfortunate end in the dungeon. One of the items turns out to be a rod that lets him mind control others in their sleep, effectively having them serve him while they sleepwalk. Having Rim use the rod, he puts his entire mining team under mind control, having them work every night while they sleep to dig out the more of the refined demonite he found, as in the morning they do not remember any of that, only being confused as to why they are so tired. Wannabe warns him that he is breaking quite a few laws by doing this, and he should stop while he can still make amends, but Kinji does not heed his warning. One night, as Kinji is enjoying the extremely profitable results of his scheme, the magical rod reaches its limit and breaks. With everyone from his mining team suddenly regaining consciousness, they realize what was going on and gang up on him, beating him up. Due to his actions, Kinji and Wannabe get transferred to another group. The group in question is being in charge of cleaning up after the exploration group, restocking supplies for them, as well as doing all sorts of errands in the dungeon. While doing their new job, Wannabe ends up caught by a mimic chest. In order to save him, Kinji throws all the supplies he was carrying into the mimic's mouth. Wannabe gets injured in the process, and with all of the supplies lost, Kinji is the one blamed for it. With his pay docked and being forced to take double shifts in order to compensate for his missing teammate, Kinji feels despair, having to resort to stealing garbage from a restaurant in order to feed Rim. While working his shift, Kinji is determined to find a way to rise up from his position and not let this company destroy him. Just then, a member of the exploration team runs by him, being chased by an army of monster ants. The two of them run as fast as their legs can carry them, reaching a supply outpost. From there, Kinji contacts his superior above ground, but the superior refuses to send any help to them. With the ant army breaking into the supply shack, Kinji rummages through the supplies available to them, coming up with a genius idea. He combines a transformation potion with pieces of the monster ants that the exploration group member managed to cut down. Drinking the potion, he, the exploration group member, and the supply outpost stockkeeper transform into the same monster ants. Thanks to that, the other ants leave them be. Unfortunately, they see that they cannot escape the dungeon, as the upper levels got sealed once their superiors realized what was going on. Noticing that many of the monster ants are exhausted and injured, Kinji comes up with a solution to their predicament. Thanks to the transformation potion, he is able to understand and speak the same language as the ants. Using his charisma, Kinji persuades the worker ants to unify underneath him, promising them better treatment and help against the Ant Queen's tyranny. His plan works out perfectly, with lots of ants wanting a better life than the one they are forced to live. They are so swayed by him that even after the potion wears off and he transforms back into a human, they still follow after him. The Ant Queen is unhappy with the progress of their expansion, seeking to capitalize on the fact that the gluttonous dragon from upper floors has vanished. Suddenly, she is swarmed by a horde of ants that are protesting against her. She does not understand what is going on, but at this point Kinji comes out to explain the situation, telling her that she is getting replaced by him, as she does not have the required talent to rule the ants. The Ant Queen is furious, bringing forth her power as she switches into combat mode. She tells him that the only thing needed to rule is power. Just as she is about to strike down Kinji, Rim shows up. She is hungry and upset because Kinji did not feed her in a while, so she starts chasing after the ants that are nearby. The Ant Queen immediately recognizes the dragon even though she is in her human form. Kinji manages to stop Rin from eating the ants by giving her some meat he stole from the supply shack. Thanks to that, the Ant Queen and the ants view him as a hero of their kind. Some days later, Wannabe returns to work, apologizing to Kinji for having to do his share while he was healing. Kinji dismisses his apology, telling him not to worry about it. Instead, he asks Wannabe to join him in his plan to overthrow the company that rules over them, as they are trying to sweep the fact that they abandoned them to the ants under the rug. While asking him to join, he reveals to him that he created his own group in the dungeon, with the monster ants and Rim, naming it the Dungeon Black Company. Unfortunately, yet another setback happens as Kinji and Wannabe are sent to a training camp where they are subjected to disciplinary methods. The entire purpose of the training camp is to turn them into mindless grunts that will be happy to offer their everything for the success of the company. Slowly but surely, everyone begins changing and accepting their fates, as it is revealed that they are constantly subjected to black magic that gradually brainwashes them. Finally, once they are all deemed to be converted, they are sent back to the dungeon. On the way back, Kinji snaps out of the brainwashed state, making sure Wannabe regains his senses as well. It turns out that by following Kinji's idea, they both ingested some confusion-inducing herbs which kept them from getting brainwashed. Not only that, but they also put the same herbs in the mage's food, causing them to go crazy and blow up the entire brainwashing compound after they left. Back at the company, they are introduced to Shia, who is apparently the second coming of the hero. She has been put in charge of them, but she has a hard time controlling her strength as she knocks out Wannabe while doing introductions. Hearing that Kinji is not dedicated to the company, she takes him into the dungeon to establish just how strong he is so she can start correcting his ways. A large monster appears and Kinji falls back, being unable to fight against it. While Shia easily defeats the monster, Kinji is approached by an ant. As soon as she sees Kinji protecting the ant from her, she is convinced that he is in fact a monster as well. Standing no chance against her, Kinji quickly calls for Rim. Shia strikes at Rim but fails to inflict any damage onto her. Rim decides to take Shia seriously, transforming into a more grown-up and powerful form. In that form, she easily overpowers Shia. Wannabe catches up with them, only to find Kinji planning his next move with Rim and the Ant Queen, while Shia is restrained behind them, screaming how they are breaking company policies. In order to keep her quiet, they take a photo of her hanging out with the dungeon monsters, using that photo as blackmail material that will ruin her reputation if it were to come out. Kinji welcomes her to the Dungeon Black Company as she will now be forced to work for them. One evening, Kinji is pressured by the loan shark to return the gold he borrowed together with interest, giving him a final deadline before they take his life instead. Inside of the dungeon, Shia is trying to teach Kinji and Wannabe how to fight against monsters. But Kinji is too depressed due to his impending doom to get motivated for such activities, but as they are collecting the loot from monsters, he comes up with an idea. The company that owns the dungeon is preparing for the appearance of the Magin as a death march is approaching, meaning that all of the monsters in Demo Night will respawn inside of the dungeon. Kinji's idea is to create a monster farm inside of the dungeon where they domesticate the monsters and harvest loot from them without having to fight or kill them, as the monsters heal any lost parts on their own over time. This idea becomes so profitable that it helps him pay out his entire debt to the loan shark. Shia is feeling uneasy about the way they are earning money, as it is not the way she was taught to do it. While she protests, a strong earthquake shakes the dungeon, collapsing parts of the floor and making her fall into the depths. Kinji tries to save her from the fall, but ends up falling down after her instead. The owner of the company, Belzev, explains how the Magin will attack during the Death March, seeking humans with a strong magical aura in order to devour them, revealing how she sent Shia into the dungeon in the first place, so she would serve as food for the Magin, having it calm down when it eats her. Kinji and Shia find themselves deeper in the dungeon, where Shia thanks him for his effort, even though he failed to save her from falling. It is there that the Magin appears, attacking Shia. She is overwhelmed by its power, and it wounds her with its strong attack. Shia has an item that allows one person to teleport out of the dungeon in case of an emergency, but as it is two of them, Shia wants to use the item on Kinji, determined to stay behind and fulfill her duty. Kinji refuses to accept that, grabbing the item from her hand and tossing it onto the Majin, which causes the Majin to be teleported out of the dungeon instead, much to the surprise of everyone above ground. Shia cannot believe what Kinji did, but Kinji is not bothered by it at all, stating that the Majin was focusing only on her anyway, so the monster will make its way back to her eventually, meaning this only bought them some time to prepare. Kinji uses the tamed monsters to quickly prepare traps for the Majin, worried as Rim is nowhere to be found. Kinji's plan seems to work, as they are using Shia to lead the Majin from one trap to the next, damaging and weakening it bit by bit. Eventually, the Majin goes into berserk mode from all the traps, and Shia is ready to put her life on the line again to stop it. Hey, thank you for staying all the way till the end. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like. It takes only a second, but it means everything to us. Have a great day and see you in the next video.